Hello and good morning. Today is October 31st. Happy Halloween. This is the Kubeflow community call for the 31st of October 2023. I'd like to get started on our agenda. Would like to remind everybody that this meeting is governed by the Kubeflow Code of Conduct as well as by rules and regulations of the CNCF, and that this call is being recorded. And so we would like everyone to understand that if you do not want to be recording, you should just drop off or not participate in a way that you'll be recorded. So we are getting near the end of the deliveries for Kubeflow 1.8, and I believe, Daniela, you're here on the phone. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. Hi, everyone.
Do you want to walk us through where we're at?
Absolutely. All right. So, last week we had a couple of releases as we discussed in the last community meeting. We ended up releasing RC5, which contains one fix for pipelines and also includes this update for the notebooks server. So the notebook server images, sorry, so that we extend our support for ARM there as well. Those were the changes, and thanks to all the community that has been involved and that has been provided feedback, because yeah, because of that we found out a couple of other things as well. So we ended up releasing RC5, and so far we haven't received any feedback that could potentially change the release date or block the release at all, which is really good news. I also just sent a communication for call for action for anyone that has an issue, just to speak out, raise your hand and let us know, because otherwise we are releasing. The release date is tomorrow, so it shouldn't be changed unless we have a blocker. Additionally, on my side, I am running the end-to-end tests that the manifest working group also runs at the beginning of the release. This is just to make sure that everything is in place and that all of the components are at least one last time tested. Also regarding the blog post, we have a draft there. It's almost done. It's almost ready. We just need approval from the working group leads. Leads, please make sure that you give an ag or looks good to me in that PR that I'm linking there. David has been leading this effort, so if you have any comments, please make sure to reach out to David Cardoso. He's in the call. And also, if you want to leave feedback in the PR, you feel free to do that. We also have been working on the slides for the video presentation that we usually do. The presentation is there. You can edit. If you don't have access, please let us know, but pretty sure you should have. Again, working group leads, please make sure that you have added your content, and we're also reaching out to the leads for a recording of themselves, just explaining about about this release and their components. We expect to release this video next week, so please make sure that you have this soon. Anyway, David is also leading this effort, so if you have any questions or comments, please make sure you reach out there as well. So those are essentially the updates, Josh and community. If anyone has any comment or question, please let me know. This is the time. If you consider something should be blocked,
Yeah.
also let me know.
So there's one thing that so the notebooks work fine, to be clear. It's just that so there's one decision we have to make, and I think I don't know which way to make it, which is that Jupiter 4 is so we updated the base images to Jupiter 4. Jupiter 4 came out maybe about 4 or 5 months ago, but very few plugins support Jupiter 4 yet, including some that have been largely abandoned that are adjacent to the Kubeflow community, like Kale and Elira. And it might be worth downgrading and until literally 3 days ago, there was not even a Git plugin for Jupiter 4. So, like, the question is, should we downgrade to the latest version of Jupiter 3? Which still doesn't prevent people upgrading it, to be clear. But as the default. That's and then there's that, and then there's also the other side of it, which is that Jupiter 4 brings support for the real-time collaboration plugin, which isn't ready for prime time, no question. I've tried it and it doesn't work properly in Kubeflow or anywhere really yet, but it's going to be in the next month or so, I imagine. And it's really cool. It's like Google Docs for Jupiter. It's amazing. But I guess the question for the people in the community, in the call, everyone else is, what are people's thoughts about either staying with Jupiter 3 or staying with Jupiter 4 or just downgrading to the latest Jupiter 3? And then, yeah, there's some other considerations to be had. But Sean.
Yeah, I guess the operative question for me is how many of these plugins are developed also by Kubeflow, or how many are developed by the community, and do they have upgrade paths?
Yeah, so obviously Elira and well, Kale's been dead for a long time, so I don't think we have to be concerned about that one. But Elira is probably the only other big one. There's also just other plugins, right? Like things that people might be using in their workflows that are.
Yeah.
The bigger problem is that pip is really stupid. Pip is obviously the package manager for Python, and if we don't use 4, inevitably what's going to happen, well, honestly, anything could happen because plugins have been pinning themselves as less than 4, or some of them have just not been pinning everything and don't work with 4. So the problem is that pip is really stupid. If you try and install something and you've already got a package that it thinks is incompatible, it will downgrade the things you've already got installed.
Oof.
So for example, let's say the Jupyter Lab Git plugin is a good example. So their most recent release, that's GA, has a less than 4 pin. If you do a pip install Jupyter Lab Git, it will actually downgrade Jupyter Lab. You know what I mean? So to 3,
So,
which, yeah.
Given all of those concerns, I feel like it's probably something that should be deferred to like next release. That doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like it'll have a great user experience if that were to be changed today.
Yeah, it's hard to know because like the user experience is bad either way. That's just a Python problem. The bigger issue, I think, is not so much about the pip issues, is more about whether we just want to force move to 4 and wait for the plugins to catch up, because effectively we have no plugins installed anymore. So like previously we had some plugins installed, most notably only the Jupyter Lab Git one.
I would say probably not on forcing the upgrade, but I would say maybe like put it out as a roadmap thing of there will be an eventual upgrade, because I love the sound of the real-time collaboration plugin. That sounds amazing. But I think given the significant lift that it will take from people even outside the community to get there, I think there needs to be a cycle or 2 of deprecation for 3.
I just worry that the things that I'm waiting for may never come. Like it's very unlikely that Elira will ever see another release, and it's certain that Kale won't. So,
right.
So Matthew, let me just to be in the same page. So what are the implications of actually just staying with 3? We're not getting
there's no significant implication other than the fact that users may accidentally upgrade. That seems less likely than accidentally downgrading. It's more likely that they'll accidentally downgrade.
Right.
But so yeah, I can very easily make a PR that will change us to 3 in like 10 seconds, to be clear. It'll only take like 10 seconds.
I would say that, and I agree with Sean that this sounds like something that we can potentially work on the next cycle, but perhaps if something is not ready, we should just go with 3 and call it a day.
Yeah,
And I agree that it's significantly low work. Yes,
I have a
Johan?
yeah, I have a similar thought because we should not delay the Kubeflow release anymore. In my
Yeah.
opinion, we are really late
Yeah.
because community is actually waiting for the release, right? Maybe like we can think about having a separate release for the notebooks, right? And then think about like if someone actually wants extra feature, they can actually do that separate upgrade if they really
Yeah.
want to separately. But the Kubeflow release should not be delayed anymore. Like that's my thought.
Yeah, I totally agree. So Matthew,
The
let's
current state is fine, to be clear. If we released with the current images, nothing would be significantly wrong. But I can make a quick PR that pushes us back down to 3 so that the ones we release in the final release candidate is 3.
I think that's better. I think that's better, and I agree. And let's add it in the next cycle, and
Yeah.
just prevent us from.
I'll also re-add the Git plugin then, if we're going to do that. I'll do it quickly after this meeting. I don't know
Yeah.
who can approve it. Well, actually, I can approve it if you LGTM it.
Okay. Yeah, let me know. I'll keep an eye on it, and let's do that today.
Yeah, I'll just do a quick test locally first, but I'm pretty sure everything will work completely fine.
All right. Yeah. Then okay, thanks for letting us know, Matthew.
The reason I was saying this is just because I had a bunch of people pinging me saying, "Oh, this doesn't work in 4," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, I kind of knew that." But it's kind of like I would like those things to update themselves, but that may be a hopeless cause in some cases.
Okay.
I think pressure from Kubeflow to upgrade should probably be the major determining factor rather than just immediately breaking all users' workflows.
Yeah, that's fair. Then I'm not sure exactly if we need another RC.
Well, you
Just
need
for
to cut an RC just for that, just so that we can confirm that they work, but you don't need to actually bring it into the main manifests.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So for Kubeflow, that's for sure. But for the actual Kubeflow manifest, I don't think we need another RC. We can just include it in the final release. If that's it.
Yeah, we will test that RC. There's literally no actual difference really between them. It's just
okay.
What does that mean? We will test it.
Well, I'm just going to make sure that it actually runs because it's literally just the version that we were already using. There's no reason that it wouldn't work. Well, not the version we're using. It's a much newer version actually, but it's just like it's Jupyter, right? Jupyter either works or it doesn't. It's the base part of the image.
Okay. What does that mean? Are you going
a general thought here? Like Matthew, like if we can now it looks fine, but in general, it is better not to add anything outside the RC because there is like I completely agree with you, right? Because like it won't break. But again, I'm saying just as a principle, if we differ that to then something next, then we are sure that like things all work, right? Because we accidentally something can happen, and then we will just get into like unforeseen issues, right? Like just a thought in general. I think that is the best strategy in general.
Yeah. For this specific case, I think we're probably fine. But yeah, it's because it's better because we're actually unbreaking something in a sense, if you know what I mean.
Okay. So yeah, just let me know when that's right.
Yeah, I'll do that
Something.
just straight after this.
All right. Yeah, sure. Thanks. Other than this, do you folks in the call have any other feedback for the release?
Since I just joined, I just wanted to ask, so will we include the new images in 1.8 the final release?
Yes.
I didn't get it before.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, those were actually included last week in a previous RC, in RC4, actually. We were just discussing about this tiny thing, this tiny package. Okay. Any other question?
So have we heard back from distributions or users who have tested RC5?
Right, so the last thing that we received was last week. There was a user testing pipelines. They opened an issue and the issue was solved, and actually it's included in the last RC. So other than that, we haven't received feedback. But this happened like 5 days ago, so.
So I did hear back from Tommy from IBM, and he did say that they have tested RC5. So we have at least one distribution
Right.
has tested, and you said you've done or you're doing some testing as well?
Correct. I'm performing the end-to-end test that we have in the Kubeflow manifest repository.
And then Matthew, are you also going to test installation of RC5 and bringing up the notebooks?
Well, I mean, that's what but that works. That's I thought you meant in deploy KF. No, I haven't tested it in deploy KF yet. I know that's a bit sad, but it's because I had a bit of a number of other things to get done. But the notebook images aren't dependent on the Kubeflow version, so.
That actually just real quick brings up an interesting question of like, what is the official like deprecation strategy? Like, is it a common thing to like ship, multiple versions of notebook images and put out some sort of deprecation notice to the community? And what's like the cadence around that that's generally followed?
The notebook images technically have no SLA at all. They are examples, and they never have had any SLA. So we can kind of do anything we want there, but and because it's so trivial for people to just take our images and do whatever they want with them. They can build them themselves, and like they work, and it is difficult to make images. That's why we produce examples.
Yeah, it is.
But you could just copy our images. You know what I mean? like that's if you need to make a change. But also like I'm looking at, by the way, to be clear, Jupyter Lab 4 actually has been out since May.
Oh.
I'm just putting it here like this, and like anything that hasn't updated by now. I mean, even the Git plugin though. Yeah, I don't know. I think it could just be I agree. Let's move to 3. It just feels sad.
Yeah, is it possible to put out like multiple versions of the
It would be,
images,
but that would just be hectic for it would just be very confusing to use, I think. It's probably best to just stick with 3.
All right, yeah, I think with a longer cadence of like, deprecation notes, because this is the first time that we Red Hat are hearing this as well, so.
I mean, if you could do a quick patch on Elira for 4, that would be great, but that's a whole separate discussion.
Something we could definitely look into, yeah. But we'd just been thinking about, what do we do in case this happens? But yeah, I would definitely love to sync up more on this.
Cool. Anyway, let's just move on.
Yeah.
All right, David, just one thing on the blog post. I think we explicitly call out Jupyter 4. I don't know whether we want to take out every reference to Jupyter. Do we know what is there a version of Jupyter 3.x or is it just 3.0?
No, it's 3.6 that we would be downgrading to. But again, we don't want to reference Jupyter 4. Maybe we want to just note that we're not using Jupyter 4 so that your plugins will work.
All right, David, you got that?
And the next release, actually, maybe honestly, this is a good time to put in the blog that the next release will be Jupyter 4.
Yeah, the blog post actually is pretty good, but it's long. So I think there's the one thing that is just amazing if you have not read the blog post, and we do need all the working group leads to LGTM that today. We do need all the working group leads to LGTM their sections in the blog post today, so David can finish it up and get it ready. is that there's a lot of, I think, good detail. It shows how much work the community has done. For those who have, and we get these comments from competitive projects and from others about the strength of the community. I think it's just amazing. If you read the blog post, how much is in this release? It's not small. Which is one of the reasons why I think that we've done a very good job of coming in and delivering it on time. Okay. Anything else? I guess the biggest thing is that we do need the blog post ready when the software is ready. And Daniela, when do you think the software and the documentation will be posted?
So tomorrow we will be cutting, if nothing goes terribly wrong, tomorrow we will be cutting the last like the actual release. So not an RC, but the actual release. The same will happen for the docs, so the blog post, the website, and I'm missing something. No, the
So
blog post.
Daniela, one question there. We have to have, for the individual repositories, we need to have the final release cut, right? Because we are still at the RC for Catib and the training operator. For training, it is fine. For the Catib, it is also.
Yeah, and for similarly for the Kubeflow repo, but yes.
Right.
Yes, we'll allow you to do that, of course.
Right. Yeah. So Kubeflow, I can handle it, but that's a good point. So Catib, training operator, Kserve, that's not a problem. But
when do you want to cut that?
If it can be ready today by the end of the day or tomorrow morning, that's perfectly fine.
Sure. Let me check. Sure.
So base it off if you've got open issues, right? If you don't have any open issues, then
yeah, exactly.
Then cut it right now, if you want.
Yeah, exactly. And for the other components, we're fine. So
yeah. So with the downgrade of this thing, I'll just raise a PR, and you can probably cut we could do one release candidate just to confirm everything works, and then we immediately cut a final on it once it builds.
Yeah, that's fine. So yeah, so Josh, to answer your question, everything should happen tomorrow, provided that no other major things happens between today and tomorrow.
Okay. So we need to make sure that all the links work in the blog. We also need to make sure that the release notes or whatever we're feeding to folks about the updates on each of the working groups, that there are a place for people to get the notes. In particular, Kubeflow updates, are those there? Have we double checked that the Kubeflow release notes are available?
Yeah, so Kimonos has a template that I will fill. So when I cut the release for Kubeflow, I will fill that in. So that's on me as well.
Oh boy.
Okay.
We also need to add a section on the website for 1.8, but obviously we need the links to everything before we can do that.
Yeah, so that section on the website, it's also work in progress.
Do you have a PR already, or are we just going to do it afterwards? It's fine either way.
I have a draft. Yes, we are tracking that in another issue for documentation, but that's considered as well. All right. Anything else, folks?
Okay. So all of this is going to be done electronically. No need to have a call tomorrow, even for the release team. Anything like that, you don't want to have that just in case. Everything, you feel good, you're just going to go electronic from here on.
I mean, I was not planning to have a session with the release team. We can have it for sure, but typically I don't think we have done it. Yeah. I can do it if just to confirm that everything has been released. Just perhaps with you and David to sync with the dogs and all.
It might help just because you're gonna have a lot of things going on at one time to have some people helping double check or whatever, but up to you, right?
Yeah, let's have a sync with you and David. We are the people that are involved in this stage of the release, so I think that's fair. That's good.
Okay. All right.
Sure.
Well, great job. Fantastic. November 8th looks like the slide presentation. I don't know if the working group leads or whomever, if people are traveling or at KubeCon or whatever, but let's try to make that work. We'll get that firmed up here in the next few days and get out. Is there going to be a meeting invite to that, or how's that going to be communicated?
Right. So the way we're handling with David is that people are going to do that asynchronously, and we're going to be editing and putting everything together. Yeah, so David sent an email earlier, and just to so to the all the working group leads to get these, as well as the presentation information.
Okay. I mean, we haven't ever done it that way before, but I think that, I mean, like we've always tried to get everybody together and run through it from end to end, but I think it's fine to do it async and let's see how well this goes through. It's not a big deal either way, but
Right.
you know, I think that's fine.
Right. I thought it that way because it's hard sometimes to just feed everyone's agenda. So doing it at async, it's I think it's more efficient probably. Let's try it. If it doesn't work, let's not do it again in the next release, but I think it will be fine.
Yeah, I just you need an editor, right? So when you have everybody and you can almost get it all the way done, then I think there's less editing, but fine. If you got somebody to edit it, that's great.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic.
right.
We've got a plan. We're working our plan. We're very close. Good job,
Yeah.
Daniela. Good job, release team. Good job to everyone on the contributors. And we really would like to see, you know, feedback from the users. We do this for your, you know, your input. So please make an effort, right? If you want improved documentation, you want improved quality, you want improved installation, you have to contribute at this point. This is important.
Yeah.
Okay, so
right.
let's keep moving. Good job. We'll have a big celebration. I was looking at the CNCF personal CLA as a kind of a follow-on to our last conversation. I don't know, has anybody, just by show of hands, has anybody signed this already? Would anybody consider?
Well, to be clear, everyone who's contributed to Kubernetes will have signed this, right? So actually, that may not be true. Kubernetes did use the Google CLA for a long time. I don't know what they're currently using, to be honest. What are they currently using? Kubernetes CLA.
So I read through this document on the personal one. There was this one statement here at the end of this paragraph that you can see that was written by someone who likes to talk in circles. I don't know if anybody has read this or had an attorney look at it or can make sense of it. I don't think it's a real big deal, but I was just wondering if anybody has read this last sentence in this paragraph that I have here and whether they understand it. Okay, it looks like I'm in good company because I didn't really understand it. But maybe I'll have to read it again and see. My take was just on a personal level, I thought that perhaps I would just sign this personal CLA. There is another one in there for corporate CLA.
It's kind of an interesting clause, by the way.
Yeah,
It's an interesting clause. It's kind of like attack us if you will, because you're going to lose the right to use the software if you do, which makes sense. It does make sense that in some sense you lose the right to use the software if you start suing the project. Specifically under the context of a patent dispute.
is that how you read this? Because it says if any entity.
If an entity institutes a patent litigation against you or any other entity, including cross-claim or counterclaim lawsuit. So this is a typical patent clause that protects you against. So like, for example, the Apache clause, similarly, if someone is using, it's kind of a crazy situation actually. In like the Apache license, I'm not a lawyer, but from what it said, and this is not legal advice, but from my interpretation of it, if anyone uses your Apache 2.0 license software, they're actually unable to sue you for patent infringement. Similarly here.
I kind of get that, Matthew, but back onto this, it says, then any patent licenses granted to that entity under this agreement for that contribution or work shall terminate.
Yeah, so effectively it's like,
so if somebody sues
you or another entity
Right.
alleging that your contribution or to the work to which you have contributed constitutes a direct or contributory patent infringement, then any patent licenses granted to that entity under this agreement for the contribution or work shall terminate. So effectively, by claiming, my interpretation here, not a lawyer, not legal advice, is that under your, if someone raises an action against you, they are implicitly claiming that that you didn't own the right to give the patent license in the first place, and therefore waive their right to the grant that you made to them. If you know what I mean. So like effectively it allows you to countersue them from the date of the patent infringement. So if they continue to use the product afterwards.
Josh, can we ask one of the CNCF lawyers to just maybe join us on a call and just answer our questions?
Yeah, I mean, what's the concern here? Because obviously this is something that as an individual you'd be signing, not.
Yeah, so I mean, for those of you that would be signing on an individual, my point was I read the whole thing. It was all fairly logical, and except for this statement. And you know, I assume fairly soon we are going to need to move from the Google CLA. We're gonna have to move to something. There may be a corporate one, there may be a personal one. I was just trying to resolve this personal one, even for myself. So yeah, if we could find a CNCF attorney to explain this roundabout logic.
I think you might really struggle to get any lawyer to go on the record about anything related to this sort of stuff, because everything in this case would be a per litigation basis.
Not just explaining a license. They can explain it in general terms, but a lawyer that doesn't represent the CNCF wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. But a lawyer who represents the CNCF could explain in general terms what this really means.
And maybe the best question would be the best question would be what is it being used for in past, but that may not be public. So yeah.
Well, it would have to be. You got to answer questions. So anyway, we can talk about that offline.
Yeah, but what I guess I'm getting to is that any patent license granted to that entity, that would be the suing entity, under this agreement shall terminate.
Yeah, so it's effectively it's a reverse Uno clause, if you will. It's like if you sue me, I can sue you. Almost.
I don't really read it that way, Matthew. I read it that they terminate their license. But anyway, let's get a pro in here. I appreciate your comments. Maybe you're right. Anyway, trying to move it forward.
Just a quick question, Josh. Sorry. I'm wondering, can we just follow the same CLA as Knative and Kubernetes?
That is the one from Kubernetes, I believe.
Oh, right. And Knative also do the same things, right?
I would imagine that they would have used the CNCF one. I don't know for sure. I need to go check, but.
All right. Thank you.
Because this is the CNCF CLA. Like that's the one that the Linux Foundation produced for the CNCF.
The other funky thing that I saw about that, if you haven't read it, is that it looks like you have to sign it and fax it or mail it.
So there's a bot that's on the that's probably like one of the legal options you could theoretically do if you're old fashioned. But there is a bot called EasyCLA, which I believe is what the Linux Foundation uses. So I imagine that we could get that bot added to our repos.
Yeah, I mean, if you go into this document, right, at the very top of it, the instructions, I mean, this is the document that shows up out of here, says that you're supposed to, sign it and fax it, right? So
I saw that as well. But again, the actual like for example, here's the Kubernetes information about how to do it for the Kubernetes one. You effectively just go to the EasyCLA bot thing and approve it and sign it. We can just I'm confident that we can add ourselves to this. Even if we added our own CLA, like this bot is just part of the Linux Foundation, which we're now part of. So
okay. Let's keep moving forward. CNCF graduation efforts. I think you put this document together, is that right, Amber?
Yeah, based on the conversation from the last meeting, on the issue, it's just the top level checklist. And I was going through it with Jeremy and Sean. And I just expanded just one piece of it, which is the badging piece. I didn't expand the other ones, which I still need to do, but you can see that we really need to do an audit against the badge and see what we already have versus what we don't have versus what we have to have. So you can see the list. If you scroll, it's like 4 pages. Like it's a lot.
Yeah, I'm trying to go slow because I'm trying to read it, but maybe it doesn't make any sense to try to read it. Okay.
So I just didn't, what I realized was people just saw that those 6 or 7 items, oh, this isn't much. But then when you look at it and you start clicking on, here's the requirements for each of these and expand it out, that's just the basic requirements. There's a silver and a gold, I think, level above that. So that list that I expanded is just the basic list. So.
I have a question about this. So, the incubation, part of it, I know that we were accepted, but I know that there's also onboarding part that wasn't finished. So wouldn't we have to do that first before we move on to the graduation checklist?
We need to finish the other one, but part of the onboarding ones are like out of our control, like, and I can go back and add those on there too. You're right, Anna, we do need to finish those, but there's nothing that says we can't do them in parallel.
Yeah,
But
I
just have to be done. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that we should prioritize the other ones first, before we move on to the graduation checklist. Of course, we can work them in parallel, but I think other one is more priority.
Yeah, I wasn't the one maintaining that list, but I can definitely add it. Like I can go update the incubation one and put a link to the items that are still unfinished. I was just working on this one, so.
Do we know who's responsible, or is there a meeting happening on the project onboarding one? Is there anyone that's working on that?
No. We probably should. We worked on it, like the way we worked on incubation, we should probably do the same with onboarding.
Yeah, I mean, if someone could lead it, I'd be happy to participate and help with the onboarding.
What I can do, I can't take on much more, but what I can do is put the document together, create the issue and share it. And then maybe on the next meeting, somebody else could say, they could take on the individual efforts. All I can do is right now is just do the paperwork, if you will, between security stuff and this other, but I'm happy to put the list together and share it at the next meeting. If that will work and give everybody a chance to think about where they can help.
Right. So regarding the CNCF project onboarding, we have a checklist on the CNCF side, and then I have marked some of them as finished, but we are really looking for volunteer. I have mentioned that couple times in these community meetings before. So really appreciate Anna for volunteering to work on that. We don't have a meeting because it's more like a sync effort. You just need to go to the checklist and then see which one you are willing to participate, and then you can just like take the driver's seat and then kind of like I'm here to help you if you need anything from me. And then once we drive to the finish line, then we can also acknowledge those contribution as part of the Kubeflow community contribution as well. So yeah, so I think this is the current approach we take. But if you think a meeting will be better, I can definitely schedule one.
No, I don't think it's necessary. If the issue is up to date, then I think people can just pick up the task from there. So we can just start from there, and then if necessary, we can schedule a meeting later when it's needed.
James,
Definitely.
can you link here?
Yeah, I will go paste the link here. I think it was also in this meeting note, in the community meeting note as well. I just need to look it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all I had on the list. Are there any walk-on topics?
I've got one thing I just wanted to quickly highlight about a DeployKF update, but James is lifting his hand, so let him go first. James?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were lifting your hand, sorry. Yeah, just a quick update, something really cool that I integrated with a release of DeployKF yesterday for Kubeflow pipelines. It's a new kind of authentication. I'll just link it here. I don't want to talk about it too much. I'll just link it for people to see. The specific is I'm calling it like a browser-based login flow. And so what it does is it allows you to go into, like when you're running the Kubeflow pipelines SDK on your machine, it lets you, it prompts you to say, go to this URL, it redirects to the DeployKF auth, and then it gives you prompts you with a code to copy back down, which will feel very familiar to anyone who's used like like the AWS CLI or the Google CLI. That's pretty much how those work to authenticate yourself. And so that now works with this. And the coolest part about it is that it can refresh your token. So like, as long as, at least under the default settings in DeployKF, this means that the token that it generates and persists on your machine will last 90 days. It expires every 60 minutes, but it refreshes itself every 60 minutes. And it's capable of refreshing for up to 90 days, which is kind of cool. You can obviously extend that if you want. But I just thought that I wanted to show it, and the way it's implemented is in a way that could theoretically be implemented by other distributions, but it is there's like a piece of code there which you can copy as a credential provider on that link. It's under the top section. People can read it themselves. But I just thought I wanted to highlight it because it's a commonly asked question, which is, beyond the static passwords that we already demonstrate how to log in. This is a new way of being able to act as yourself on the Kubeflow pipelines SDK. Anyway, just so I thought if someone wanted to take a look at that, they can.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. I don't know if are there any other items that people want to bring up? Marcin.
So I've got a question about Spark. It seemed to be on the agenda for today, but I think it got dropped for some reason.
Yeah, whoever runs the agenda must have left it off. That bad guy here. Let's put it back on. That was me, my fault. Go ahead. Yeah, I'd like to see if we could move this Spark question operator forward. Do we have now where do you believe that we stand on this at this point? I mean, your perspective.
My perspective. So I'm more or less where I was about 2 months ago. So I still want to have some good support for Spark in Kubernetes. Google is still committed to donating the code if you are interested. I'm not sure about the other Spark operator and what's their plan. And last time we talked, you said you would like to have some survey about Spark to check whether there is an interest in the community. So the issue has been +1 couple of times. Don't know what are the next steps on my side or on your side.
So who do you represent? Sorry.
Google.
Okay, is Google interested in supporting it, or are they only interested in donating it?
So right now we don't have staffing to support in long term. We could facilitate the transition, donation, training, and so on, but long term we cannot staff it.
Yeah, so there's a potential that we could, I mean, this is obviously for the community to decide. Probably it's not clear exactly who would be the owner of it. We'd need to assign an owner within the project. We could theoretically assign it as like what level of support was it being given before, like an alpha or a beta or something like that?
So this thing was quite graduated. It was on the market for 5 years, so it seemed to be quite decent in terms of quality.
Yeah, because like obviously there's the danger with accepting something that's like actually very finished is that it suddenly means that we have the burden of maintaining it. But yeah, I'm not against it.
I wasn't the author of this thing. I don't know exactly what sits inside and how many booby traps there are. So that's what it is. I want to have good Spark support in Kubernetes, and I have this half-abandoned thing that was still used by some users, but it's not in. It's not one maintained at this moment.
So I think that the big question for me, as a pretty heavy Spark user from back in the day, not so much recent times, is that I think there's a debate around whether the Spark for running Spark jobs on Kubernetes. I think there's definitely a debate on whether an operator or using the inbuilt Spark on Kubernetes support is the right way to go for most people. That's a question, right? And so obviously, as a Kubeflow project, we should evaluate what we want to take a side on. Like, because I don't think both of them can be true, right? I think only one of those could be sensible. So I don't know what my current perspective is. I'm just saying, like, I don't think it's possible for both to be the correct way to use Spark on Kubernetes. So I think as a community, we should almost decide either the steering committee or whoever, technical steering committee, when that eventually gets formed. Obviously, this is definitely a decision for both the technical steering committee, which hasn't been formed yet, and the project as a whole, if there's someone to maintain it. But I'm really open to the idea of it being part of Kubeflow because it's very commonly used with Kubeflow. But I'm just not sure that if the reason Google has not maintained it is because it's no longer the best way to do it, that could be a reason not to adopt it.
So the answer is no. The reason why the maintenance got dropped was that there was some internal reorg. And the person who was maintaining it moved to some other team.
I'm just looking at it here. It looks very active. It looks like there's actually a lot of people maintaining it. Like the most recent commits are from 5 days ago. Actually, it looks like there was a lot of commits in the last 5 days, and then there hasn't been pre that point. There was quite a big gap before then. Okay,
maybe that person had a free weekend and merged a couple of PRs, but the long-term status is more or less like, as I said, we cannot stuff it long-term.
I mean, if we could get them, if they're interested in making it an official part of the CNCF/Kubeflow, whatever, we should probably get their input, right? Because it looks like they are still merging things.
Well, the other option was that we had a company Stackable that had a second operator who was willing to provide long-term support for this. And per the conversation we had with Marcin and the Stackable team, we are going to find out whether folks were interested. And it looked like, whatever it was, if we look at, I think there were more than 10 people that said that they were interested in this or thumbs up it. Not that that's a commitment to use it or support it. But I guess I'm trying to get a temperature from the community today. Is this something that we should move forward, consider for the roadmap and, seriously for, let's say, 1.8?
Well, I think we should decide how we're going to, I think that's what I'm saying. The first step is that we decide how, as a community, not as like, we're not going to say you can't do other things, but it's more like, what is the first party supported way of doing Spark with Kubeflow? You know what I mean? I think we should decide that. And that obviously will be largely informed by who's willing to actually do the work. But
yeah, I'm with you there, Matthew. I get the point of the technical implementation. I'm wondering whether the community feels that we have enough input that we should prioritize this as even something we should put on the list of to-dos. Whichever way.
Can I have
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I get your point. Marcin, I have a few questions to you. So I understand that probably like Google kind of stepping back from the project, but do you have anyone else in the community who is actually willing to be part of the owners of this project moving forward? Anyone from Google?
At this moment, no. No one from Google.
And these people who do like the commits right now, are they just doing this as a side hustle, or they basically, like the long-term contributors who are maintaining this project?
Sorry, the person who merged it was the original author of this project, so he probably still feels a little bit obligated to merge something from time to time.
And it looks like the companies that were using it were doing the contributions, not that guy.
Sorry?
It looks like based off the commit history. Yeah.
He is just merging.
Yeah. That's what I just want to clarify, that the maintainers, the maintainer is like merging something, but they're like Roblox, for example, it looks like there was a bunch of PRs from Roblox.
Yeah.
Because I mean, should we just try to ask these people whether they want to be part of the owner's file for the big kind of, part of the project such as Kubeflow? Because the problem is like, I think it's not a problem to adopting Spark on a project. I know many companies using this in production, like specifically this Spark operator from Google. Problem is like, we need to find people who want to be on the owner's file and at least like, answer some issues or, I mean, not even like do the roadmap, but at least like, maintain this project for some time, right? As long as we cannot find the people who actually can be in the owner's files, it's very hard for us to donate, right? If that makes sense.
Or accept the donation.
Yeah, accept the donation. Yeah. So, Marcelo, so do we have any kind of ways of connecting these people who are active in the community? I mean, we can definitely create an issue on the Spark operator repo, right? And ask them whether they want to be the part of the new repo under Kubeflow, right?
I can reach to them via Slack or via some other means if they have, the email in their GitHub profile.
Yeah, I think that would be nice. Yeah, because like, I don't think we should, just ignore it, because this project is very important for ML workflow overall, And as I mentioned before, several times before, Kubeflow doesn't have any story around data preparation, data migration in their workloads, especially for distributed training. Like, we don't have any good story of how you can basically feed your data for distributed workers on the fly, similar to what, for example, Array Data is doing today on the Array clusters, right? We just don't have the similar components. But
just to be clear, just because lots of people are using an approach doesn't mean that we should be encouraging them to do that approach. Like, there is a native Spark on Kubernetes thing. And like, maybe we should not encourage people to use the operator, instead to use that. I don't know. I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm just saying, like, the Spark operator existed pre that support. That's how old it is.
I kind of have this thought that perhaps to move this forward, we need a leadership team to take it on. And kind of my thought is we probably need 2 engineering people and 1 type of marketing person project manager, somebody like that, to kind of look at this and see if this should move forward. I'm wondering if that's kind of a way, however we implement it, if we can find two engineering leaders, so we've got a primary and a backup where they can share responsibility, and then somebody else to kind of help with the whether, if we can form that team, then perhaps this could go forward, right? And they could organize meetings and other things to make this. Does that make sense?
Well, I think absolutely we would not accept a project that doesn't have at least two committers, right? That's would be crazy. So I think the most logical thing would be to get in the room virtually with the guy or girl who maintains the current project from both of them, I guess, because we could also use this time to merge the two operators together or something. If there's interest from that stackable one, like you said. But if we could, because that might allow us to get more contributors. You know what I mean? Like if we take the contributors from both projects.
So what I'm looking for here is we get the two committers and the other person, maybe it's just the two committers, and there's, what do we want from them? You know, from our side, if they're going to associate with Kubeflow, right? Do we want some type of roadmap? Do we want some type of commitment through 1.9 or beyond? I'm not looking for a lifetime commitment. I'm looking for, can they do something in a certain period of time to move it forward to help users, right? And my proposal is perhaps on the item there, we look for people that can help us during the 1.9 timeframe, deliver something that's valuable to users. And, you know, they provide a roadmap, they have their meetings, they provide updates to us, and we support them. We're willing to give them some form of SLA when they have questions.
I think the most logical next step is just to get the contributors of those projects in the room and have a chat with them and see what they're willing to do.
Well, we did that, right? And
okay.
but now, you know, I think it's time for us to. We did that. We went out to ask the community, is there interest? There was interest. Now it's time to say, okay, are we going to go or no go? And what are the rules of the road?
Well, I would personally, if I'm going to put my foot down and say something, I would prefer there only be one Spark operator, right? There shouldn't be two standards in any field, right? And if possible, if we can kill two birds with one stone, so to speak, that might be also helpful to the community by combining them.
Okay, but let me ask this, Marcin, from, and I'm putting you in an unfair situation, but what would you, let's just say that, for instance, you put on the hat, I'm not saying that you're going to do this because I think the stackable guy said he was going to do it, but what would you expect the Kubeflow community to provide back to the Spark working group team, right? What type of support do you think that the Kubeflow community would have to provide to
it? So basically, like maintenance of one operator or the other. I don't have like a strong preference on my company's operator. I would like to give Kubernetes community long-term support for Spark, one way or another. You provide operators for various things like MPI, TensorFlow, PyTorch, and when the new version of, I don't know, TensorFlow comes out and it has new features, you support it in your operator. And it would be great if Spark could get the similar support from Kubeflow. So be yet another operator in your portfolio that gets its fixes merged and issues being responded.
All right, I think that's a reasonable. And then what about Is there an integration with any of the other existing Kubeflow components?
In Spark Operator, in Google Spark Operator, I'm not aware of it.
The only integration is that historically you could deploy Spark on the Spark operator from Google as part of the Kubeflow manifests, but that's been removed. But obviously it's trivial to deploy the operator, to be clear. It's just
yeah. So there is a lot of kind of integration between PyTorch and Spark, for example. I mean, for example, you can use Spark sessions to use it's data loader, right? So, for example, like if you store it in the memory and you can feed the data to your PyTorch workers, you can do it with Spark. I think in this field, like the community didn't really spend a lot of time to resolve this problem. Basically, how you distribute your data across multiple training workloads and start your training. So this will be extremely important for large models because you use a lot of data and you kind of like train this model for multiple workers. And today, like the Kubeflow users, they have to like, upload the data for every worker by themselves. So I think the question is like, can we solve this somehow? Can we have a better integration with Spark and training overall, using some, for example, PyArrow technologies or anything else, how you can streamline your data from one microservice to another. So this is the thing that we can work on. And this is more like about the long-term features that we just don't have today. And
I mean, it definitely feels like the training working group would be the logical place to put it, even though, just because of the fact that you maintain a lot of operators, even though it's not strictly speaking a training thing.
Yeah, it's like how you basically can streamline your data preparation to a training part of ML lifecycle, right? So I just feel that's like basically, if we have people from Spark in the Kubeflow community, this will be extremely helpful for Kubeflow users in the long term.
Well, to be clear, the Spark operator doesn't work in the way that you're needing it to for that thing you just said about PyTorch, because Spark,
yeah, I understand.
Spark operator creates jobs, right, rather than Spark clusters.
I think like Spark jobs behind the scenes is using the Spark clusters, right? So
yeah, but you can't submit to that cluster directly. It's like a spawned for the job only, I think. Right? I don't know which one. This may be different for one of the operators, but that's how it historically worked, at least.
Yeah, but I mean there is a difference also, for example, Apache Airflight, right? Or other like microservices of how you could basically streamline your data from Spark to training. Like for example, like how it solves by array data, right? In the array clusters, right? So they have their own kind of like technologies to streamline, to basically give you an ability to feed your data from Spark to training, right? Whether it's training around multiple workers. I just said like there are a lot of opportunities that the community can work on. And if we can find the people from Spark who actually know Spark better than we do, that would be helpful.
I've actually done quite a bit with Spark. I don't have a lot of time to work on it. Also, I just found this list of users of the Google Spark operator. So maybe we should reach out to some of them and see if they're interested in helping.
Well, I think this has to either have its own working group or join one of the existing working groups.
Well, clearly. Yeah. I mean, in any case, nothing can happen here until the steering committee is formed, because there has to be a vote by them. But there's no way that we would allow this to join without the vote from the steering committee. So maybe we should focus on elections, but then keep trying to facilitate discussions. I think honestly, if they're feature compatible, combining the two operators into a neutrally governed Kubeflow one, even if it's not particularly popular, as long as it has people maintaining it, would still be good for the world.
I would say, despite on the elections, we should find the people who actually can be part of the owners files. So,
yes.
Marcin, if you can like reach out to these guys and let us know, that would be nice in the next following weeks.
Okay.
Tell them to message us on Slack. Go on to the training working group channel on the Slack.
Yeah, I don't think this is fair to him. I mean, Marcin's come back twice. We need to, as a Kubeflow community, make a decision whether we're in or out on this.
Well, we literally can't make that decision until someone
Fine.
actually
I
following.
don't understand why you get to speak and make that very strong comment like that, Matthew.
How could we possibly accept a new donation without having a steering group?
Because we accept software all the time. I mean, come on. We can do
When was
that.
the last time we accepted a new portion of the project?
Times are changing. We can do it. Okay. If we want to. I just want to be fair to Marcin, right? He's asked 2 months ago. He came back and asked again. The stackable guys were here and were active and wanted to do it. We did what we said. If we wait another 2 months, that means we've made them wait 4 months. I don't understand the purpose of making them wait another 4 months, 2 months, right? We need to make a decision so they can move on with their lives. That's what I'm kind of challenged with. I'm just trying to be fair to them.
Well, I respect that. I respect your concern for them. Obviously, most of the time when you're donating projects, I'm not speaking against anyone here. The onus is on the donator to provide information. In the same way that when we donated to the CNCF, we had a lot of work to do, right?
Let's try for next week to figure out how we can frame this up to where it makes sense for all parties.
But I think, Josh, so sorry for interrupting. I think like we still need to find people, right, who actually will maintain this, right?
But the
I mean, from
guys said that they would, right? I mean, I think the fact is, if Google is not going to support their operator, we already discussed this before, that it's probably going to be the stackable operator. And the stackable guys said they would take some of the Google code where it made sense and how they could. That's a path forward, right? The question is, if the stackable guys were willing to go through 1.9 and 1.10 to do that integration with us, would we see as Kubeflow community benefit? And what would be the rules of the road for us to support them?
Yeah, but I guess like from my understanding, Stackable, they're not planning to invest time for integration with Kubeflow because they're running Spark on their own kind of data platform. So there is no reason for them to spend time to integrate with Kubeflow, other Kubeflow components, right? But maybe I'm missing something here.
They may or may not. I mean, that's really what I think we need to figure out. That's what I'm trying to get to, right? What's in it for us? What's in it for them, right? What are the rules of the road to make it work? Because it can't just be one-sided. Yeah. Can we think about that and see if we can come up with a proposal? I don't know, and try to move this forward in the next couple of weeks. I understand, Matthew, that you'd like to have the steering committee, and if people want to wait, I'm cool with that. But
well, I think it's more like just a final decision. I'm not saying that we can't do the process before that point. I was just saying the final decision.
Fine. I just don't want to lose the stackable guy because he was willing, and you know how hard it is to get all your ducks in a row, right?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like we need to confirm with the Google guy if he's willing to be a secondary approver, but because also we don't want one company controlling any single component. That is kind of an old-fashioned policy we have. So obviously the stackable team would have to have at least one non-stackable committer, right?
Okay, that's cool.
We've had that rule for every other component. So, so that's what I'm saying. So like, if the stackable people want to be part of Kubeflow and we want them part of and we want them part of Kubeflow, I am more than happy to allow that to happen. I'm not the one who decides. Obviously, it's mostly about, do we have a maintainer? Right, that's the main question, right? And that's why I think the first step is we should decide as a community that we want a Spark operator, and then the next step would be, if we decide that we want it, we should figure out who can maintain it and which one we're going to accept.
Okay, we don't have that many people here, but let me just ask right now, the people on the phone right now, because I don't want to waste any more time on this. If we had do people want a Spark operator? Any yes or no? My vote would be yes. I think that we should have one. It's come up a bunch of times. I don't know if it makes complete sense, but I just have to say, it's come up for the 5 years I've been here. It's one of the top things that people have asked for. It's always been in that mid-range. It's not the very top, but it's always been in that mid-range thing that people have asked for.
But like, I assume you're talking about Spark as a whole, not the operator specifically, right?
Some form of Spark integration.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Because like that's what I was saying with option 0 on that list that I just put up there. The other option is we just put up a piece of documentation which explains how to use the native Spark support on Kubeflow. No, on Kubernetes. Because it's not like it's actually quite trivial to just submit a Spark job to Kubernetes. As of 2.4 or whatever we're up to. No, we're up to 3.2, I think now. But what I'm saying is since 2.5 or 4, it's been very first party.
Anna, do you think there should be we should invest in Spark Operator in 1.9? Or Spark integration?
Well, from the survey, it did seem like Spark was something that a lot of users were looking for. So we do have some kind of data to support that people are looking for that integration. But at the same time, I remember Manifest Working Group did have a Spark operator, which got deprecated because no one was maintaining it. So that's also another concern that I have.
Mm-hmm. Andre, what's your take?
No, I think as I mentioned, I understand that there's difference between running Spark on Kubernetes and running as a separate service. But again, I think we can build something ML specific if we can find people who willing to help us to have integration with Spark, Dask, or any kind of data preprocessing tools in Kubeflow community. Yeah, so.
Juhu? How about you? No comment. And what about you, Matthew?
Personally, I've used a lot of Spark at a lot of companies. And most people are using EMR. A small number of people, which is Amazon's managed offering. Most people, or some other indirect managed offering from Amazon or Google. A lot of people are using Spark on Kubernetes directly, and a smaller number of people again are deploying Spark standalone clusters on VMs or Kubernetes, and then a tiny, and I cannot overstate how small group of people are using operators. So like, if we think that is an operator is a good pattern for Spark, and we encourage it, that's good. If we think it is. But
those are good data points, right?
Yeah. So I'm not for or against anything in this particular case. I'm just my interest is in presenting to the data world, the ML world, what Kubeflow's vision for Spark is, not necessarily what the only way you can do it is, but just what our vision as a project is. So, and that is largely not determined by any one person. It's mostly determined by who's willing to maintain something, as people have been saying, right?
Marcin, clear as mud. Did we get closer for you, or what do we need to do to help you? What do we need to do?
Okay, so it would be great if you could make some preliminary decision on whether you want Spark Operator or not. If you want to have maintainers, then probably you should try to talk to Stackable folks, because they have maintainers. It's easier to find yet another maintainer than to find a completely new set of maintainers. And there is a company that is behind it. If you are interested in Google Operator and the negotiation with Stackable for some reasons go sideways, I'm more than happy to help you with transition, but I am unable to offer you any long-term maintenance from me or from the current maintainer. So I can help with finding other maintainers, but given that the situation will be not great, I think that it may be hard to find volunteers by just asking them on Slack. If you, it's like a chicken and egg problem to some extent. You don't commit, they don't commit, no one commits, and these things will not fly. More commitment is on the stackable side. So if I could recommend something, I would recommend making first decision, operator or no operator, talk to stackable. If it doesn't work, I could try to find you some maintainers. If you are already made a decision to go with the operator way. I would hate to go find a maintainer and finally learn that you decided that you don't want the operator after all.
It makes sense. So do you agree with my kind of 3 steps there? Like I put step 1, we should decide if we want to encourage how we will encourage running Spark alongside Kubeflow. Because I think we all agree that Spark and Kubeflow should have a good story. I think Josh and everyone's agreeing violently there. So we should decide on, there's probably more other options as well. Like decide of the ways that we could do it, which one we're going to encourage. And then once we've decided on that, we should find owners for that for that way, for that approach. And then once we've got that, we should decide if any, which of the existing operators could be part of it. And obviously this last 2 could be kind of combined together in a sense, because if we decide to go with an operator, obviously we need to take the owners of the existing operator. But that's just my thought. Because I agree that we should have a Spark story. Don't get me wrong, that's not what I'm disagreeing with. I'm just saying we need to present a good story to the community, because we'll encourage, if we can do it right, we can dramatically influence the community as to how people use Spark on Kubeflow.
Okay, so basically the next step is for you to decide which way you go. You make a decision and we will see what the decision, based on it, we will make the next steps, right?
Makes sense.
We may still want to reach out to you guys to have a discussion around what options might be, but I mean, that seems right. Josh, does that seem reasonable to you? To
Yes.
get stackable, yeah, and stuff like that, talking them?
In my opinion, this would be a good question to ask the potential steering committee members, that the people that want to run for the steering committee. This would be an example of a question they would need to be able to answer. How they would handle this situation. So I'm hoping that we move towards getting people elected to the new steering committee quickly. But in the same respect, those people that are going to be in the steering committee are probably on this call or participating in these calls. And, we need to move this forward either way, right? Because Marston's going to need to move on, and so are the people from. So let's try to figure this out in November, right? I would like to see us make a decision on this one way or another as a community in some defined period of time. And do nothing is another option, right? I mean, you have option 0, 1, 2, 3 would be, do nothing as we're doing now.
What is it? Yeah, just make some guides. Like option 3 might be just make some guides.
Or just let distributions talk about it, right? It's an external. But okay, Marston, I will make a goal to get you an answer by the end of the month.
Okay, great. Looking forward to seeing it.
How about that?
I'm fine. Great, thank you.
Thank you for your patience. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Josh, for your passion and interest in this.
All right, see you.